Okay. So grateful to be here with you all, for us all to be together. Really. I used to do this every week in person, long before the internet was alive, up in Long Island, and it felt so good to sit together and share together and kind of help each other wake up and grow. And now, even with this online, it works. It definitely works. It works because time and space as we experience it is only a micro percent of the totality of what we are and what we have access to. And today is going to be, it feels like it's going to be kind of a practice and a way for us to open up to those parts of ourselves, the infinite, to get out of the conditioned mind and see where it goes. I was feeling into like, okay, what's the first theme for the year? And the obvious one was um, um, in, intention. Thank you. I was going to stuck on the word integration. The first was intention, and it's like, well, people are setting their goals and their resolutions and intention, but every time I started to go in that direction, it's like things were just not moving in that direction energetically, and it was like surrender was actually the first thing that came in. And when I finally surrendered to the surrender, the direction, right? It's so interesting how I don't care how long we've been doing this work, the mind thinks it knows better. Isn't that amazing? It's incessant. So when I finally surrendered to the direction that this was about surrender, then what I realized was the more we surrender, the more we are automatically in alignment with the master intention for our incarnation, for this incarnation, for this life, who's up there. The more we surrender, which is to say, to surrender our agenda, which is to say, surrender the ego's agenda, which is to surrender the personality's agenda, which is to say, stop believing that part of us that has been causing all the problems and then says, I know how to get us out of this. Because the ultimate surrender and the ultimate intention, to put it into spiritual terms, is thy will be done. And as what kind of slipped out through my mind when I wrote the email going out, trust is the lubricant. That's so cool, a feeling and a flavor and an energy and it, it's because like the mind clings and we cling to believing that we're the mind and trust is the lubricant. But let's just surrender and let go. The flow is always here. It just starts happening. We just stop screwing around with it. So let's take a moment and just close our eyes and be present. And let go of what we call the past and let go of what we call the future, because none of it actually exists except in our minds. And drop into this present now. This is what exists. This is the place we share as we drop in, as we drop out of the personal stories, which keeps us separate from each other. Drop into this without question. With what is here now, as it is. Feel the breath, let it bring you into the present, anchoring you into the present. And this simple act is already a surrender of the thinking mind. It may go on and do what it wants to do, but we're not that. If we were, there's no way we could be here together like this now. No way. And if it continues to do its thing, doesn't matter. Just don't be interested, as Nisargadatta says. Be here now. Surrender every thought without even looking at the thought. But if you happen to notice it, that's fine too. Just right here into this moment, this infinity, just surrender it. You don't even have to like hand it over, kind of. You just let go of the grip on it. Let go of the impulse to have to think. And notice the space. Now, as a practice for the rest of our time together this morning, be here now. Notice, oops, I got caught into thinking something. Isn't that interesting? Let it go. Back to be here now. It's so simple, it drives the mind crazy because there's nothing for it to do. And we don't have to try to stop it. That only gives it more fuel. All we do is cease being interested and back to be here now. Rinse and repeat. It's actually possible to be in this space all the time. Certainly increasingly. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on two short videos this morning. The first one is from Rupert Spira, talking about one particular way of looking at surrender. And then after that, it's like, I don't know, 6, 7 minutes, because it's kind of, this guy asks some couple of questions, but it's what Rupert says that's the really useful thing here. So then we'll let that go, and then maybe we'll do a little discussion about what you got out of those 6 or 7 minutes with regard to surrender. And then we'll have another one from Eckhart Tolle, which gives it a whole different angle, which I think is also fabulous. And then we'll get into a bigger discussion off of there. Okay. So let's see. If you would mute yourselves. Let me see. Can I do this? Mute all. I'm going to mute all. Mute all. Okay, here we go. And then I will share my screen, and then I'll put this first one on. If for some reason, you should be able to hear it. If you can't hear it for some reason, you could send me a chat thing. Not that I could do anything about it. Okay, let's see. I should do it. Okay, I'm gonna.
to all or everything mean? And if there's some relevance of truth, maybe you could...
Let me start again.
What does surrender to all or everything mean? And if there's some relevance of truth, maybe you could elaborate on that and maybe flag some pointers to what it means to surrender to all, because not that it's scary to me, but from the way I've been raised, surrendering is somewhat foreign, you know what I mean?
It's not really the surrendering to everything, but rather the surrendering of everything. Not that that's going to be very comforting for you. But the surrendering of everything is not, it's often misunderstood. It's not something that the mind has to do. The mind, as you rightly imply, is going to have a horrible time trying to surrender. It's more a question of seeing that space of awareness in which our experience appears is already letting every appearance go moment by moment. Awareness never holds on to a thought, a sensation, or a perception. So that awareness's natural condition is to be totally surrendered. It's not something we have to try to achieve with the mind. That would be a real battle. It's more a question of just noticing in our experience that awareness, the space in which all appearances and all experience arises, is already letting everything go. Take the sound of the plane, for instance. As the sound vanishes, does awareness make any effort to hold on to it? What about the current thought, or the current feeling, or the current perception? Awareness is already letting go of everything, allowing everything and simultaneously letting it go. So if we first see that, and then feel that, and then begin to take our stand as that, then we just naturally find ourselves letting objects, situations, circumstances, relationships that we would previously have wanted to hold very tightly to, we find ourselves just naturally letting them go more easily. There's less impulse to cling on to any particular experience.
So in what you just said, you used two phrases, letting go and holding on. What's the difference?
Okay, take a thought or a series of thoughts. And is it clear to you that the space of awareness in which this series of thoughts is appearing is not... is letting go of every thought as it appears. It's just letting the thought
come and go.
Come and go. It's, in other words, the natural condition of awareness is to let experience in and to let experience out, to let things come, to let things go. Now, continue taking a series of thoughts and just choose one of them, the current thought. Now, try to hold on to it.
Gotcha.
Have you, in fact, ever had an experience in your life that you were able to hold on to?
Not really, no way, but I used to think I could.
Yes. But actually, exactly, we used to think we could, but actually when we look at our experience, we've never managed to hold on to a single experience in our lives. And this hasn't destroyed us, it hasn't diminished us. experience is continually just passing through us and leaving us as we essentially are.
Yeah, I understand. Surrender was a difficult word to.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
it's because we try to make surrender an activity of the mind,
Right.
rather than realizing it is the natural condition of awareness.
Thank you.
Okay, let me do that. Hang on. Okay. Thoughts, insights. Let me just start off by saying, like, to me, the most important aspect of that, what he said, is the nature of awareness already just in a state of permanent surrender. Now, here's the thing. That's what we are. When we let go of the definitions, the habitual definitions of what we've been taught we are, this is where we end up, in this space of the infinite, just this infinite awareness. That's it. Quiet, undisturbed, peaceful. When we let go of the false identification with the mind or the feelings or the emotions, or God forbid, our possessions, this is what we end up in. And this state, it's not even a state, it's hard to say what it is, but this infinite awareness is naturally in a state of surrender. And so as we let go of what we're not, we're aligned with this, which is what we truly are. This is kind of like the strongest. It's almost as if, not like metaphorically, here we are designed, we are created as this, and this is our home. And then we get hooked into the experiences of life, which pulls us away from ourselves. And now there's this stretching going on, which is pretty uncomfortable. And then we're trying to go in there and trying to figure things out so we can get more comfortable. But then as soon as we let it go, boing, we just are back to our natural state, which is this space of awareness that naturally is in the state of surrender. And I'll speak from my experience that the more I simply allow me to be this, and trust and allow what is to be what is, the more everything flows perfectly. I mean, I just spent a couple of weeks visiting what I call the old neighborhood, getting caught in the mind, getting caught in the old patterns, getting caught in the thought systems, all that kind of stuff. And it definitely was a lot more uncomfortable. And I think it's necessary sometimes, but the difference is I felt like in some ways I was being held above it by being aware of being aware, which is the safe place to allow experience to come through, as Rupert said. Just like it just passes through us. And there's somehow, that's the way it's designed to be. Just we are present. We take the actions we are called to take when they come from this awareness, and then we're in alignment with the flow and to do what the right thing is. But when we get caught in trying to manage the experience, to try to make ourselves more comfortable, we are interfering with that natural flow, and that's where it all gets mucked up. So all we got to do is let go, and we're already in the state of surrender, because that's the natural state that we are. So there's two levels there, because you got to let go to surrender, but then you surrender to let go, and it's like interesting. Okay, any thoughts, insights to share? Guys can unmute yourselves. Go ahead.
I have a question. Um, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Guri.
Hey, hi. So the I actually relate to what you're saying. I've been also thinking on those lines, actually practicing, even during meditation or otherwise, to be awareness and just understand that this all this life, whatever you're doing is just that's what you have. You're doing it, but don't get caught up in it. But some people may have much more peaceful life, but in terms of their,
Right. Their
their
experience.
incarnations, like
Mhm.
they have more luxury of being quiet. But some people may have a very busy life. They have to take care of kids, or they have work and the boss is not happy with them. There are lots of things going on. For those people, it is more challenging to be awareness. I feel that way. And what is your thoughts on that kind of life where it's more busyness and more demands
Yeah.
to meet?
And
And they do have the same passion to be aware,
hmm
but they have more challenges in comparison to somebody who has much more relaxed life.
hmm Yep.
What would you advise that person?
There's a root belief there. Root. The part of me that's the engineer loves to go for root cause. It's called root cause analysis. You get to the bottom line, and then all the secondary effects fall away if you could fix the primary thing. The root belief operating in your question is that my inner state is dependent on the outer conditions. That's a belief. It's not a truth, but it's a powerful belief. So to the degree that it's operating, then you're always in an anxious state, even if you manage to block it out to some degree, because you somehow believe that you are at the effect of random occurrences and the intensity of experience. So there's movement on two different levels. And if you can decouple that belief or notice it as a belief and just be willing, that is very powerful. Willingness is very powerful. Willing to let that belief go, your deeper self will help you move in that direction. And then you'll start to recognize that there's movement in, well, for now, I'm just going to call it two different dimensions. There's movement in what we call the outer, the activities of life, the actions, the interactions with people, the experiences. But then there's movement within. How busy is my inner world and how busy is my outer world? In front, I mean, eventually when you start to look at it long enough, you realize there's no separation from that. My outer life is a reflection of my inner life. But once you can start to decouple, then your practice becomes now the entire external experience, your interaction with the world becomes the leading edge of your sadhana, becomes the leading edge of your practice. Because you say, okay, here's my center, anchor into it. Oh, look, I got lost in that because the boss said something to me I didn't like. Well, isn't that interesting? What's going on in here? And now you do a self-inquiry process instead of screw that guy. How am I going to get back? How am I going to protect myself? How am I? That's all planning of a mind that's caught in itself. And so as you decouple, what you will start to experience is your inner state becomes more independent of the outer, which at one level, somebody say, well, that sounds pretty like a psychopathology, like you're disassociating from the outer, but it's a healthy dissociation. It's that my inner self and state is primary, and the outer state is just the curriculum for me to train myself to be stable and centered and anchored into self, capital S self, independent of the external. That's the mastery level.
Yeah.
Now, what happens at that point, paradoxically, because you would think, well, I'm just not going to engage with the world. I'm not going to be effective in the world. How am I going to get my job done? How am I going to pick the kids up? How am I? When in fact, when you're disengaged from that level, from the outer, and you're more centered in the inner. As you're in this space, this is the infinite flow of intelligence, the infinite flow of energy, the infinite flow of everything. And that's now a state of being, capital B. Now, this being, call it energy, call it flow, is flowing through you as an instrument into the activities you need to do in the outer world, and everything becomes relatively effortless, I
Mm-hmm.
have to say. Because it's being done through you, it's not being done by you. If you're hooked into the outer in that belief system, then everything is a belief. It's all wrapped around me. The ego is extraordinarily narcissistic, right? So it thinks that it's the source, it's the cause, it's the blame, it's the everything, but it's not. It doesn't even exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm
So
gonna.
actually, I won't take long, but it just say, so for personally, I don't get so attached to the outer eye in the when I'm busy, but the chattering of mind is that what the mind chatters more, and in comparison to times when I am more relaxed and I'm being aware of awareness or I am awareness, I feel more, my mind is also can be quiet, much more quieter than when I'm busy with life. Even if I'm aware of who I am, my mind does chatter more. That's what I don't want, you know.
Yeah, okay. Well, what I do personally is I have a little list of mantras that I keep right here. And they're like pacifiers for the mind, and I pull it out as needed. When I notice the mind getting busy, it's like here, Om Namah Shivaya, here, Ram, here, shut the fuck up, whatever mantra works for you in the moment. So
Thank you.
yeah, Martha, anyone else? You guys had a question or something or a comment?
Yeah.
Whoa, I guess that's you and Bill. No,
Yeah. Bill, are you?
no, Bill's muted.
Oh, there. Are you muted, Bill?
I don't know if this is relative, but for me, it's like a pinball machine. Something triggers me. I
Mhm,
pull back the lever. I hit the ball.
mhm.
It goes into the machine. Boom, boom, boom. This thought, that, blah, blah, blah. And it just goes on until the ball finally
Runs
falls
out of
in the hole and I get back to my normal or the place I want to be.
yeah, yeah. And then you keep playing with the flippers to keep the ball going, right? Don't you?
Well, that's it. You got to unplug the machine.
Unplug the machine, yeah. And you're very good. And the way to unplug it is this is all what Guri was asking about, what you're mentioning. It's the curriculum. It's like being in the gym. It's like when I notice I get hooked in, and make no mistake about it, it is not pulling me in. I'm hypnotized by it and I'm going into it. The locus of power is in me, not in the thought. But the moment I notice, I forget. We go unconscious, right? And then we get caught. Sam Harris defines being asleep as thinking without realizing you're thinking. And so we get there. We go into that space. But the moment we wake up, boom, that's the moment when you strengthen your awareness. So don't be afraid of getting lost in it. Be committed to being awake. And that commitment will wake you up at some point in your thought stream, or I call the rabbit hole. The moment you wake up, you know what you do. You let it go back to presence, and however you do that. And then you'll get caught again, and then you notice it, you wake up, let it go. It's that right there, that moment of waking up and letting go is when your consciousness is purifying and strengthening, and you're gradually dissolving a mistaken identity that I am the mind. Let me bring in the second video, which is a different way of looking at surrender, and then we'll continue our discussion. Share.
Are you muted?
I'm gonna, oh yeah,
No.
let's
You
mute,
should be muted.
I'm gonna mute everybody now.
He
Oops, stop. Mute all. Okay.
Eckhart, my question is around surrender. I'm curious, once the egoic shell has cracked open and the light of consciousness is peeking through, can the ego surrender itself to that light of consciousness, or ultimately must it be surrendered?
Thank you. The ego, I often talk of the ego as if it were an entity. It's not really an entity. It acts as if it were an entity. It seems to be an entity that has taken possession of you. But ultimately, what it is, it's only a particular way of your mind to function, an identification with the mind. So the ego itself is that dysfunctional way in which the mind works. And when that comes to an end, the dysfunctional way cannot put an end to its own dysfunction. It can only dissolve when awareness arises. Awareness is not thought. Awareness is consciousness prior to thought. And you realize that you are that, and whatever the mind produces and says are thoughts, but the thoughts are then no longer endowed with a sense of self, and that's the end of the ego. When you no longer identify with every thought that comes, that's the end of the ego. So that's what happens. So I don't know, in the way you formulate the question, the ego cannot dissolve itself, but in the light of awareness, it dissolves.
Then what is that willingness?
That willingness,
to allow it to be seen, or
that willingness is the evolutionary impulse of the universe, which created the ego in the first place in order to transcend it now. It was an evolutionary step for mankind. The ego was an enormous step for mankind, a great thing. And then it came, or is coming now, to the end of its lifespan. That particular evolutionary movement or manifestation that we call ego, it had a lifespan. It has outlived its usefulness now. We have learned a lot through it, and now it needs to go, and that's always a critical stage. The transition from one state of consciousness to another is always critical. There could be a falling back, there could be, we're at this transitional stage where the ego now needs to dissolve. The caterpillar has come to the end of its useful life as a caterpillar. It's been fine. The caterpillar was happy for a while, crawling up the tree and eating the leaves. Now there are no leaves left on the tree, and it's time for the caterpillar to cease being a caterpillar and turn into something incredible. That little slimy thing, suddenly it doesn't know what's happening to it. The caterpillar doesn't say, I must become a butterfly, or I'm trying to become a butterfly, but the caterpillar suddenly notices that crawling is becoming more and more difficult. And it's looking for leaves, it's eaten all the leaves of the tree, so there's nothing else to eat anyway. If it doesn't change now into a butterfly, it'll die. So that's what's happening to humans. The shift to a different evolutionary level or dimension. This is us being here, that's all part of it. It's part of that, the shift. The butterfly is emerging right here. The caterpillar is not totally gone yet. It's the transitional period. Thanks. Even you can notice in every one of you, sometimes you're still a caterpillar, and at other times, you're already a butterfly. Present, aware, non-reactive, aligned with the present moment.
Okay. I think it's the third time I've watched that, and I love it. He's definitely transmitting Shakti through his eyes, in case you haven't noticed. Sometimes we're the butterfly, sometimes we're the caterpillar. Because it's not us alone that's in this transformation period. I feel fortunate that I feel like I'm kind of on the head of the emergence of it all. I think all of us are, otherwise we wouldn't be sitting in this virtual room together. There's a different level of surrender we're talking about here. It's surrendering to the process, this master process of consciousness that's awakening. I've had conversations with probably every one of you about these things, and we're all noticing something's been going on, something's been accelerating. And I could imagine the caterpillar, when it thinks it's a caterpillar and that's all it could be, it freaks out when it realizes it's not able to continue being a caterpillar. It doesn't know what can come next. It thinks that's the end. And that causes a lot of clinging. And the clinging is the issue. I've come to realize that in my own inner work, ultimately, that there's no feeling that can harm me. When I was a kid, I believed that. So I put all these defense mechanisms in place, right? But as now, there's no feeling that can harm me. The only thing that was actually harming me or causing pain was the resistance to feeling what is. And so things are shifting faster and faster in the general collective, in case you haven't noticed. Things that seem to have been stable and working are breaking down. And if you're focused outside to try to keep things stable as the definition of who I am, who I'm supposed to be in this world, and everything's starting to get weird, then I'm going to try to cling to it more, try to get everything to stop and go backwards or to whatever it is. And then we're seeing a lot of that out there. We're seeing fear go up. But if you're paying attention and going inwards more, my experience is this is a time that's really accelerating our evolution. It's accelerating us into one, there's almost an inward driving force that's pulling us inward, saying, here's where you need to be to go through what we're going through right now. And the other one is trusting and surrendering to and trusting the greater process that created us. This awareness is our doorway. It's our home, as Eckhart was saying. It's the space prior to thought. It's the space between the thought. Space between thought. You could imagine in your mind how a single thought, it has an emergence, a beginning, like the wave of an ocean, right? and at a certain time where it exists, and then a time where it dissolves. That's extremely small and short. And even if there's a collection of a lot of them, but what they're arising in and falling away into is this infinite space of awareness. So surrendering is just allowing these things to come up and fall down, and we're here. So there's this, but then there's the surrender of the bigger evolutionary process that's going on. Now here's where the trust really comes in, because this one's a big challenge to the ego. I'm going to die if I just let go. I'm going to die if I just trust. And so I have to cling and control more and more and more. And that's the greater the force that's operating to emerge, to bring us, awaken us into ourself, the more people are starting to trying to cling. The ego's trying to cling to what is out there. And that's where we're seeing all this conflict going on right now. And if you take a look at all the times in your life when you've been trying to control things, felt like you had to control things, how'd that work? Has it ever worked? Ever? Actually, no, when you're honest with yourself. So that means you can't even you can't even control. So the impulse to try to control, that's the interesting space. That's more powerful. Look at the impulse in you, the need, that thing that shows up to need to try to control the externals. And then you go into a inquiry about that. It's like, what is that? All these objects, thoughts, feelings, beliefs, impulses, all of it. We're none of that. But when we're present, again, as Eckhart mentioned, this is the light of consciousness. It exists here, now, as this. That is it. You allow that impulse to come into this present moment. The thoughts, the feelings, the beliefs to come into this present moment. As we're anchored and more anchored into our true self, our true nature, we are the light. This is the light that burns up, that transforms, that unwinds, that knows how to deal with the insane level of knots, K-N-O-T-S. Also very often exemplified by N-O-T. The resistance to what is starts to just unwind and unwind and unwind. And that means we could just get to be here more and more and more. And okay, the world's going to do what it's going to do. People are going to do what they're going to do. And we get to walk around in a greater state of inner peace in this process. If we could never have actually controlled anything in the first place, then what's the point of even entertaining that idea anymore? Honestly. Thy will be done. Great line. One of my favorite lines from Course in Miracles says, fear of the will of God is one of the strangest beliefs the human mind has ever made up. And I sat with that one for a long time because it was such a powerful statement because I started looking, it's like, wait a second, what is this will of God business? And of course, the first thing I encountered was all the noise that religion interjected about that statement. And then the noise of what religion interjected about what God actually is, and I had to work through all that kind of stuff. And then I started realizing, oh, I think most people suffer from an emotional confusion between what we call God and our parents. There's an enmeshment there. Because now let's throw away the word God. It's been a pretty polluted word. the totality of all there is. We notice that the times we were able to relax and surrender and to see that operating in our life, it produces amazing results. If that's the will, then I want to surrender to that as much as possible because it knows better. And it's like even the terminology is almost frustrating because saying an it makes it a duality. Is there me and there's an it, but that's not the way it is. So I'm just going to qualify it because we've got to do that with language. Letting, allowing, there's the word. The master flow to live through me as me is the safest place I can be. Everybody's looking for safety. It's the safest place. And the more I recognize that, the more I can relax into it and surrender and let it just do its thing through me. The more I do that, the easier things get. The more at peace I feel. The more my heart can open up. Yeah, the more fun things are. It came in loud and clear one time. Something amazing happened in I don't remember the actual circumstance because what was important was the lesson I got out of it. I completely understood that when I let go of my ego's agenda, the universe gets me to desire what it's about to give me and everything is in flow. It's an amazingly powerful statement. When I let go of my own agenda, thinking I know, and the I, what is this I? It's not even a me. It's the ego that says, I know what we need to be happy. It doesn't. And then you spend your life creating that thing, and then you realize, shit, this isn't it. So when we give up that impulse, that set of thoughts, the universe gets us to desire what it's about to give us, which is always in our best interest, and everything's in flow. Now, the enmeshment with the parents that's left over would say, you get that image of surrendering to the will of God, and it's always everything's going to be in your best interest. It's like the parent with the belt saying, this hurts me more than it hurts you. This is for your own best interest. That was part of, and my parents didn't even beat me. And I still had that in there as I had to like unwind this idea, this enmeshment between surrendering to what is the source and the enmeshment with my parents. Okay. Thoughts? What this means for you? How do you see applying this to you?
I thought I thought about what Eckhart said about detaching from your thoughts is the way to like dissolve the ego. And I thought of like even the Buddha would say that like this the root of suffering is attachment. So like the attachment to my own ideas, to my own false ideas of who I am and what my thoughts are bringing up. And I was thinking of Jory and what you were talking about earlier about having just a busy life and being so attached to the outcomes of my busy life because I have expectations that they should come to fruition in the manner that is helpful and beneficial to my family and everybody around me. Like I would only want that and wish that, but I'm also being so attached to the outcomes rather than the process of what's happening. And it just makes me think about another person, Jay Shetty, who talked about like what detachment really is. Detachment is not being away from everything and just kind of creating a silo, but detachment is being close to everything, but not letting it control you or consume you. And I think that's exactly what you've talked about this whole time. It's like relinquishing control, but at the same time, having the utmost certainty that the source already has like the vision and plan and play for you, and you just need to walk it and let go.
Perfect. That's so well said. It brings to mind a very important key statement from the Bhagavad Gita, which is basically saying, do what you do, but be not attached to the fruits of your labor. And so this is really, really, I mean, really important that if I'm starting to do something with an attachment to the outcome, I'm already screwing with the process. I'm already interfering with the process. I already think I know how it's supposed to work out, or what I need for it to work out in order for my best interest, right? And so that means I'm already interfering with it. And believe me, I come up against this all the time. I was working through this myself yesterday and the day before with the rest, with this. It's like, oh man, I did it Saturday morning and not too many people are registering and. Now, how about that for a statement of how attached to the outcome my mind was, right? And I had to work through all that crap. And because why am I doing what I'm doing? Am I doing it for the outcome, or am I doing it because I feel called to do it? The second state is the natural state. The first one is the guaranteed, it's going to muck it up somehow. So it's perfect what you said. You do what you do, and you relinquish the results of what you're doing, because there's millions of additional forces that are operating that determine the outcome of whatever we do. That's the truth. So what are we doing trying to decide how it should be? It's impossible. But we somehow take it on as a level, a feeling of responsibility. But the highest formula for stress is having responsibility for something that you don't have the appropriate power for. There it is. Yeah, Bill.
It's always going to be how it's going to be. And when I feel myself starting to be pulled into something that is other than how when I don't feel right, when I feel I'm being pulled into something, the easiest way for me to put an end to that is to look out the window and look at something that is perfect. That's nothing for me to play with, it's nothing for me to fix. It's just there in its own perfection to be appreciated. And there's consciousness, and then it's like a consciousness that there's no playing. It's just there, and I'm just here.
Perfect. What you said brings to mind, I don't know the entire line of story, but I got enough of it to share. And that this Tibetan monk, some monk, was like falling off the side of a cliff, and he grabbed onto a branch, and the branch was starting to give way. And as it's about to give way, he's noticing there's a strawberry right there. And he picks the strawberry and he just looks at it. That's it.
Yeah.
We're all going off the cliff all the time.
And it's never going to end.
It's never going to end. And the good news is there's no floor.
Yeah.
We're not going to go splat into something.
Only in the past and in the future.
Only in time.
In the moment.
That's right.
You won't hit the floor.
That's right. Right. In time, we believe there's a floor. In the present, there's no time. There's just the eternal, infinite. And
it's perfect.
It is. And everything in our curriculum, our life experience, is here for us to actually realize this. I don't know why. This is the way things are, the way they are.
It's almost like it's a trick that God's playing, that the ego is like a software that's running in the background to keep us from burning down the house or whatever.
Yeah, for good reason.
And sometimes instead of playing in the background, it plays in the foreground. And it starts to drag us around.
Did you say sometimes?
Yeah, often, every few seconds, it wants to drag us around.
Right.
And then look out the window and it's over.
It's over. Yes. Yes. Thanks for saying that. Last week, in the gym of all places, I had this pretty powerful recognition of something that ties into what you're saying. That I was just noticing this very thing. It's like being in the present this is it. And this is great. This is it. Why would anybody, and it felt so good. I was just feeling so good in the present. It's like, why would anybody want to leave here? Well, the mind takes you away. Well, why? And I just started taking a look at what's the mechanism? What's going on here? So, oh, I got this image of these two almost like wings, and where the past is this way and the future is this way. The present is here now, vertical, but it's as if the past and the future had this little connector that went around the here now, bypassed the here now. Past, future, keep going back and forth with each other. It's like, wow, this mechanism of bypassing being present. Why does it not want to be present? What's going on? And then it hit me, because in the present, it's impossible for the ego to be here. It dies. It's gone. And as of its own self-preservation, it constructs this flow of constantly ping-ponging between past and future, when they're ignoring, in denial of presence. That's it. It's in the denial of divinity right here.
The humor in it is that if God had put our heart in our head and put our brain in our chest, then our eyes would feed our heart instead of feeding our brain, which grinds everything up.
Yeah. Well, you know that neurologically we process, number one, in every single cell. But number two, the concentrated areas are not just brain, but heart and gut. Right? There's more serotonin receptors here. There's more electrical activity here. And they say the longest spiritual journey really is from here to here.
Was a bad attempt of humor.
It's a good one. It's really right on. Right on. Surrendering. Into what? Into us. That's the thing. I mean, how relaxing is it to realize that I could surrender into just let go of the agenda and let the year unfold?
Couldn't we get paralyzed into surrendering, that we're so focused on surrendering that we're missing the moment?
Well, that's an interesting question. That goes back to what Rupert Spires said. That's only can happen if you think that surrendering is an activity.
It can become very consuming.
But that's when you make it an activity through a belief that it's an activity. If I'm just being here, right? Trust me, something's going to move me to do something. I can't sit here like this for there are some beings that hang out in a cave in the Himalayas their entire existence, but they're not mortal. They're not normal, For the rest of us, surrender into the activity, surrender into needing to go to the bathroom, surrender into taking out the garbage. It's just like, in other words, the external, to go back to Guri's initial point, break the belief link between the external and the internal, that my internal state is dependent on an external. That's the big, powerful takeaway.
And I think that first speaker mentioned it right at the end of it, saying that surrendering is the natural state of the human existence.
Natural state. It's our natural state, right? Exactly. Margot, unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just want to put it out that I love the concept that it's where we are naturally and we get in our own way. And I want to speak to and ask the question of where my probably biggest challenges in just really being is with ongoing chronic pain
Mm.
that oftentimes is quite severe.
Mhm.
And I'm aware of the times I go into the fear of what's going to happen because this happened back there. Um, and what I don't know how I to be in a state of that strong a sensation
Mhm.
and just not want it to go away.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
accepting its presence, absolutely. And yeah, I just that's around pain that's
No,
ongoing.
no, you're totally right on here. What comes to mind is two things. One is don't look at your evolution as to whether pain is present or not. Look at it in terms of your relationship to what is present. That's number one.
Mhm.
And the other thing is that you said, I don't know how to be with this sensation, and sensation's the right word for it. It's a much better word than pain because pain has just an enormous fear connotation and it's a construct when in fact what it is what you're describing. It's a sensation. So how to be with the sensation when I want it to go away?
Exactly.
Oh, you got it. So your leading edge from, I'm just going off of your statement, right? Your leading edge is to be present with the I want it to go awayness.
Okay. Thank
Right?
you. I like that answer.
So what was that?
I like that answer
Oh, okay.
because I that's something that I know that I can be with.
Yeah. And that's your doorway.
So it's the judgment of the wanting
Mhm.
that gets in the way.
Perfect. Exactly right. And then you start to see it, and that you're seeing as you're saying, "Oh, what is being with this?" You're being with it from the space of awareness, the space of, and your light is shining right through that, and you're starting to see it in your own way, and it'll start to dissolve, and that'll take you to the next level and next level. And now here comes back to the more difficult, perhaps, part of it of letting go of the fruits of your action because it's like I'm going to do this because I want the pain to go away. You got to let go of that too.
Which happens by being with that.
Bingo. Exactly. Exactly. And again, the operative word is being, capital B. We when we allow ourselves to be, that's all that's actually required. That's why the Buddhists say that awareness or that state of being is corrective. Because this is it's like when we're aligned, it's like now we're plugged into the fire hose of the infinite and it's got the power necessary to unwind because everything is energy. The thoughts are energy, the pain itself is energy, the physical bodies, well, it's different frequencies, but it is all energy. So when we're plugged in, when we're aligned, when we're in that space of surrender, the infinite is operating through us into the leading edge of what's arising when we allow ourselves to be with it. In your case, this wanting the pain to go, et cetera, that whole thing. And then that is infinite power and intelligence that knows how to, I'll put it into these terms, reharmonize these layers of thoughts and feelings and impulses and energy, which just gradually releases and gradually releases. And then if you can allow the process to happen without attachment to whether the pain or the sensation changes, the paradox is that's your greatest space to be in to allow it to change.
Yeah, so that's the comment I was going to make is to just simply be with.
Yes.
I would like this pain to go away. I
Yes.
don't like it. To just simply be with that without, it's like it doesn't matter if it really goes away.
And compassion for that part that's suffering that wants it to go away.
Ooh, that's bingo. Yeah, that's great.
The
Because
healing for
there's
all of this, for the ego
there's
is,
the judgment there about
yeah,
the
exactly. And so then you go back one level, you go compassion to the judge.
okay.
There's
Thank
no,
you.
and you just keep unwinding. And every time you do, you're literally, figuratively, actually, stepping back into yourself, true self.
Yeah. And knowing that I'm not being this in order to get to where the pain goes away. It's like
That's right, exactly. I'm being this because this is what I am. I'm allowing myself to be me, as is. There's nothing greater than that. Yeah,
that's great. Thank you.
sure. Richard, did you have a question of some sort? Turn on your mic. Here, unmute yourself, Richard.
Technically advanced. Okay.
Oh, go
I
ahead.
wanted to do a follow-up from something that I had experienced a long time ago. I was, in my work, I'm an attorney, and I was facing a jury trial in about a week. And I got one of the biggest honkers on my lip, broken split, and I was applying Blistex night and day, night and day. And the attorney that I worked with had a spiritual advisor, and she said, I want you to call this person up and just listen to her for a minute, and you're going to be okay. And the person's name was Gladys, and she's no longer with us. And I called up Gladys, and she said, she's going to do her own spiritual work for me, but she said, don't pay it any attention. And I thought, don't pay it any attention. How is that even possible? Every day when I wake up and I'm shaving or I'm brushing my teeth, I can see it. And I said, I should still put on the lip balm and things like that. She says, no, don't. Just stop paying attention to it. Don't bother anymore about it. 2 or 3 days later, it basically was a tiny thin white line. And another day or two, there was no appearance at all. And it never came back in my entire life. And I used to be addicted to Blistex. Okay. And the lesson for me back then, of course, she said, don't pay attention to what you call, the pain, the injury, whatever. Mine was a very small example, of an injury, but it was a very powerful lesson for me in that learning. I think that's what one of these videos have been talking about, is how our brain is giving ourselves a statement. Oh, you're hurt. You're injured. What do we do? How are we going to fix it? Well, let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. And when I gave it up, essentially, but I used a person that I'll call a spiritual healer, and I kept on working with that, it was gone. It never came back. If you will, it was healed, or my impression of it, my brain, or whatever I was measuring it, changed. It was no longer an injury. It didn't go away overnight, and I think it's because I didn't know how to do that. I had to learn how to do that. So I don't know if that would apply to a person has been experiencing more severe pain or more chronic pain, but I think the pain, as you've been describing, exists in the past. It may exist in the future, but if you get to the present, there is no pain at this moment. And the more that we can stay in this moment, the more that definition, I think, will start to dissipate.
The definition is definitely a thing that's adding suffering to the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so to letting go of the definition is certainly one thing. I mean, the other thing that spiritual advisor, she probably did some energy work on you as well, but what she advised you essentially was stop monkeying with it mentally, drop it. And I think that goes for all of it. It goes for everything. I don't think there's a magnitude of difficulty into whether we are to let go of an insignificant thing or what we consider a significant thing. And the process is the same. And I don't want to say healing, the integration is the same. Yeah, it doesn't matter about the magnitude of it. Okay. Let's go do a little more meditation here. I'm gonna Mute everybody. And, so allow your eyes to close. You see. You guys hear that? Good. I actually got the audio working well. Yeah. Okay. Like everything, our discussions, our time together, our sharings, it's all here now. And we just sit in this together. In this presence, we are in the oneness. And we sit together in that which brought us together. And we're grateful, at least I am. I invite you to feel into and recognize the gratitude of this here now that's always here now. This deep love that's holding us, that created us, that keeps creating us right now, over and over, in moment, moment, here now, here now, here now. This is it, very alive. Not something that happened in the past. It's never not been. Therefore, what is death? So surrendering is to allowing ourselves to die into the moment, if you will, which is to say, let go is here now. Let go into the here now. Let be here now, be here now, be here now. With no need to know what's next. And trust in what it brings us. Trust that we're given whatever it is we need here now for this moment, here and now. And allow the infinite of this silence, the infinite intelligence, the infinite power, the infinite love, to tune us up. Allow. Thank you for being here today. It was so wonderful to be together. I'm going to stick around if anybody wants to just chat, hang out a little bit. Otherwise, the next one of these is going to be Monday night. I'm going to set up a check. Let's see here. Here. Oh, yeah. Monday night, the 20th, I think would be a good night for this. I'll send an invite out.
You can't.
I can't?
No, we're going to call.
Oh, that's the night we have that? All right. Okay. Maybe I'll do another. Maybe do a Tuesday, the 21st. I'll let you know. This place that we were, it's again, language, man. It's like we were in. No, here we are. We always take this with us. How could we not take us with us? Us. Hey, Richard. See you guys. You're all muted, so I can't hear anything you're saying.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah,
Thank you, everyone.
Great
Thanks, Eric.
together. Great being together.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
So
Thank
much
you, Eric.
wisdom.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you, everyone, for sharing.
Have a blessed everything
Yeah, you too.
forever.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. That was really lovely. Valuable to be together.
Great being together.
Wonderful group.
Great, Ray. Yeah.
Really enjoyed it. It's very meaningful. And, well expressed. All your ideas. Really well put.
Well, as Ram Dass would say, just rent a mouth. Imagine always being simply a rent a mouth.
Can you put it in the water?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, right. Well, it's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to be us.
It's nice reminders.
Thank you.
One takes care of everything else.
It's a nice reminder to, like our mind sort of drifts back into different things, and
yeah,
it's nice to be reminded.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.